Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Devin, and today I wanted to share the books that I read / listened to in the months of July and August, as well as the books that I plan to read in the month of September. I'll also be sharing some updates that I've made in my reading journal. It's not as fully up to date as I would like for this video, but I think it'll give you a very good idea of where I'm headed with all of it. Taking a step back into July, so I only read one book in July, and that was Ikigai by Hector Garcia and Francesc Morales. Hopefully I'm saying that close to its correct pronunciation. Ikigai is a self-help nonfiction book, and as someone who is no stranger to the world of personal development and just trying to figure out how to navigate through life myself, this was definitely a book that caught my eye. Ikigai is a reason for living, our sense of purpose. In this book, the authors interview a small Japanese village, I believe it's the Ogimi village, that is home to the most concentrated population of supercentenarians, and that is basically people who live to be over 100. And this, they believe, is tied very closely with their sense of ikigai, their sense of purpose. Towards the beginning, they do cover a more general view of the world's blue zones, but towards the end, they really focus in on this Japanese village. And I definitely walked away with some very key insights that I want to and have started to implement in my own life. This is a book that I started sometime in May, but wasn't really in a season of consistency just in general in my life, so I didn't really pick this book up until July again, and that's when I finished reading it. I enjoyed this book, but I think very generously I would rate it 3 out of 5 stars. I think that's because I have read so many personal development, self-help type of books, and a lot of the concepts I felt were a little repetitive for me. I think it's good to have a reminder, especially coming out of that odd season of anxiety and depression that I was just not really gracefully going through. So in a lot of ways, I feel like that kind of helps pull me out of that season, and I wouldn't shy away from recommending this book. If you're starting out in this genre, I would definitely throw this title in there, or if someone asked me about it, I would say, hey, yeah, I enjoyed that book. But on the flip side, there are books like Mindset by Carol Dweck or Grit by Angela Duckworth, as absolute must-reads. And then, if you want something a little extra, and more specifically the Japanese Blue Zone, then this would be a great book to pick up. All right, let's flip to my August spread. I kept things pretty similar. There are some differences, but the overall aesthetic and setup are pretty much the same. Let's start with Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. This is translated by Richard Pavir and Larissa Volokonsky. I'm sorry if I butchered that, but it's there so that you can see how it's spelled, and you can correct me in the comments on my pronunciation. On Goodreads, this falls under the genre of a realist novel, and I would also consider it a classic. The story is 817 pages with many pages of footnotes. I picked this book up based solely on the fact that I am obsessed with Gilmore Girls, and Rory Gilmore makes a mention of Anna Karenina in her high school graduation speech, saying she rode a sad train with Anna Karenina. And I was at the bookstore, I picked this up because Rory Gilmore read it. And really, that's all the reason that I needed. This is a book that I also started back in May, and again, just life, dealing with life. So I was very on and off, but I did make it a personal goal of mine to really be consistent towards the end of July and all throughout August, and I did finish it within the month of August, so that was quite the triumph for me. I felt very challenged by this book, but in a way where it wasn't discouraging. I felt very motivated, especially towards the 500, 600 page range. That's when the story really picked up for me. I made mention of this spread in my previous video, my little reading bookish blog. So if you want to see that, I'll have it linked in the cards and in the description box below. But I had so many words that I came across that I was unfamiliar with when reading Anna Karenina. So there are just pages and pages of words and definitions. While this book was slow for me in the beginning, I felt like it was well worth it at the end. I was very sad to end my time with Anna and all the characters that were in this book. I am quite glad that I stopped reading this book when I did and only recently decided to finish it. And that's because a lot of Anna's thoughts in here they felt eerily familiar with the state of mind that I was in a couple months ago. And I think had I read what I did end up reading about Anna, I might have felt a little too closely related to what she was saying. And I think I might have mistaken her thoughts for my own. Aside from really enjoying following Anna's story, I became particularly fond of Levin, especially towards the end. I think that his continuous search for his purpose in his different roles was something that I felt connected to as well. I could definitely see myself picking this book up again to read it and experience it just all the way through, perhaps with a different perspective the next time I decide to read it. So for that reason and many, many others, I would rate this book 4.5 stars out of 5. It really was a wonderful read, and it has me motivated to read more classics. So if you have any recommendations on where I should go from here, please feel free to jot those down in the comment section below. Also in the month of August, I started listening to and finished my first ever sPiCy audiobook, and that was Priest by Sierra Simone. As you can see, I have the physical copy in the discreet cover. I love the way that they did these. It's just gorgeous, and I'm very grateful for the journey that Tyler Bell took me on for being my first book boyfriend. And the many hours that I spent scrolling on Book Talk, there was always at least one person or one mention of how if you were going to read Priest, then you need to listen to the audiobook because of Jacob Morgan. And wow, what can I say about Jacob Morgan's narration as well as Elena Wolf's? Just, yeah, it's pretty awesome, let me tell you. Definitely check your trigger warnings for this book and any of the other spicy, more mature style of books that I might mention in this video. I loved it. It was an awesome experience. There was a scene that, can I talk about it without spoiling anything? There was a scene where I believe you could consider it the third act conflict, and I feel like that's being very general, so no spoilers. We all know that there's gonna be some conflict, right? It really bothered me. It really bothered me to the point where I had to take a whole day break from listening to it because I was so upset. But then I talked myself off the ledge and I finished listening to the book, and all is right in Whoville. I don't want to give too much away, but this story essentially follows the main character, Father Tyler Bell, and he meets a woman, and from there the question really becomes, how does he do God's work? How does he feel called to do God's work? With this book and Anna Karenina and all the other books that I'm going to talk about, I just feel like it's best experienced on the fly without any knowledge of any sort. As far as rating, I would rate it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I am tempted to rate it a little bit higher, but because it's my first spicy book, I gotta dial it back a little bit and understand that that rating might change the more spicy books that I do read. because there will be more. On my September TBR, I plan to continue reading. I did start it at the very beginning of September, Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas, and from the tabbies you can tell that I am really in the story right now. Just a very high level synopsis. This is a spicy book, so check your trigger warnings, but it's about a girl who finds herself in a situation where her and her boyfriend need a place to stay, and they end up moving in with his dad. So this story is told from the point of view of the female main character, who is Jordan, and her boyfriend's dad. With what I've read so far, it's not living up to the expectations that I was hoping it would. We're feeling just a little lukewarm right now. So, I mean, you know, again, Priest is a hard act to follow, so that might be why. I'm not gonna write off Birthday Girl entirely yet. Obviously, I'm still invested in the story, so I will give you guys a proper update once I finish it in my next reading wrap up. In my previous vlog, I also shared that I have plans to read Midnight Mass by Sierra Simone since I listened to the audiobook Priest, and it's time to continue Tyler's story. This will follow Tyler into his next role. I don't want to give too much away, but I have started reading a couple pages of this as well. I just couldn't help myself. As you can see, this is a pretty short read, and I only have that much left in Birthday Girl, so I need to make a decision as to what's gonna come after that, and I have some ideas based off of the comments that you left in my previous video. I did get a vote to go into Sinner, which will follow Tyler's brother and all of his wonderful spiciness in these copies of Sinner. I have the discreet cover as well as the original. I'm very, very excited about Sinner just because I really enjoyed Priest, and from what I've read already in Midnight Mass, I've enjoyed that as well. So I did want to pick something that was going to break up all of the spiciness that I have planned for the month of September. So I'm gonna go ahead and read Where the Crawdads Sing after I finish Sinner. This is sort of my very loose game plan as of right now. I do believe that there is a love triangle in here, but I think that the story is more focused on this murder mystery. I think it'll be a nice break from all of the romance books that I have on my TBR this month. Last but not least, I received, I think, 2 votes for Neon Gods by Katie Robert, and this is diving back into the very spicy pool. Depending on how I like Neon Gods, I might go ahead and get the next book in the Dark Olympus series, which I believe is Electric Idol. I talked about that also in my last vlog. So these are all the books that I have for my September TBR. I think based off of this current rate that I'm going, I will probably make it through to Where the Crawdads Sing. And if I do happen to ramp up to an exceptional pace, then Neon Gods will probably finish out the month. I did get a library card, so I now have access to a lot of different ebooks and audiobooks on the Libby app, which I talked about again in my previous vlog. I just talked about so many bookish things in that vlog, so if you haven't seen it, please go check it out. I am having a bit of trouble deciding what I want to borrow in the Libby app, because for the time being it's going to be through my phone or my iPad. So especially with the ebooks, you know, I want to tread cautiously, again being aware of how much time I'm spending on the screen. Audiobooks are okay because I'm not really looking at my phone, I'm just listening to the story. So I have sampled quite a few titles, 25 in total, a combination of ebooks and audiobooks. And the ebook that I'm most invested in sampling right now is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Is that right? Erin Morgenstern? Erin Morgenstern. The Night Circus is a book that I would like to pick up a physical copy of. Even though I'm only 12 pages in, I am enjoying it enough where I think I would want to have the physical copy in my collection. So I'm glad that I was able to sample it on here. Will I add it to the TBR that I just shared with you? I'm not quite sure. I do have some other books on my shelf waiting to be enjoyed, so This is just something that I like to have, you know, on hand. If I am gonna reach for my phone, I'd like for it to be to pick up a book and, you know, not get sucked into mindlessly scrolling on social media. There's nothing wrong with enjoying social media. I'm a content creator, so I understand the joys, hello, but, you know, there is a good balance that I want to strive for. So I think that this app will definitely help. So this is sort of on my TBR, but not because I want to acquire the physical copy, and then I'll feel more like committed and can stand tall and say, yes, this is on my TBR. I would love to hear from you. What books did you enjoy last month and what are you reading this month? Let us know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and feel free to share it with a friend who you think might also enjoy it. Don't forget to subscribe and to turn on your notifications. That way you don't miss any of our videos. I am doing my best to upload on a weekly schedule, most likely on the weekends. I kind of touched on this in my last vlog, but once we get on a consistent schedule, I will for sure update you guys. Feel free to enjoy these 2 videos that will be linked here on the screen. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I really appreciate it. Please take care and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.